Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the MCU Perspectives. And today we're going to be discussing the ninth film to be released as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I really have no idea how to start this one, but I guess I could talk about what this film kind of means for the legacy. When it comes, this is a film that many kind of consider one of the best films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's when I first saw this film, I thought, okay, I guess I should start when I first saw the previews. When I first saw the previews of this film, I thought, okay, whatever. Captain America movie, new supervillain, whatever. With Iron Man 3 being alright and then Thor the Dark World just being blah, I honestly didn't have that high hopes for the Winter Soldier. I just saw it and thought, oh, another Marvel movie, whatever. Maybe it'll be that. Maybe it'll be good. So I wound up going to see it, along with my mom, and holy crap! Just seeing the film in person was okay. How else you can see how you see the film? But actually seeing the film, I was blown away by it, and a lot of other people were too. It looked so like the previews made it look cool, but then you actually saw it and you kind of felt like it lived up to the hype. Like it was like a big thing to the point where where nobody could have come up with that many flaws for it. And after all these years, and I haven't seen this film for a few years, so this is me. Sorry, my dog's right here. So when I actually sat down and saw the film again, I actually found out that I missed some stuff here and there, and I actually got to reappreciate just how much of a good film it is. But does that mean it's for everyone? Well, sorry, gonna mute this. Well, then first let's talk about the plot. Well, let's get into the spoilerific plot summary. In terms of continuity, this film does take place again, like the last two films. It takes place sometime after the Avengers, if the copyright's anything go by at least 2 years. In this case, we kind of catch up with Captain America and see what he's been doing. It turns out that after he woke up in the present day, he's kind of gone back to work, so to speak. In this case, he's now working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and just kind of doing missions for them. Like usual soldier stuff, and in his free time, he works out, catches up with anybody that he knows that's still alive, and just kind of trying to catch up with the current pop culture. On top, and we kind of see, and we do see that routine a bit in the film. He does get to visit Peggy. Like he gets to see Peggy in when she's an old woman, and while he's able to catch up with her, unfortunately she has Alzheimer's. So even during their moment, so while she does have moments of lucidity where they can talk, she kind of does forget about them very quickly, and kind of goes into and reacts to seeing Cap, this just like she hasn't seen him for years. Sorry, he's trying to hide under the bed. Like a good dog. He's a little monster, but I love him. Anyway, hold on a second. Sorry about that. Anyway, as I was saying, pretty much. So like I said, he's now working for S.H.I.E.L.D. And one such mission that he's going on is that a ship that's owned by S.H.I.E.L.D. has been hijacked by pirates. And so Cap and a group of soldiers, Black Widow and a group of soldiers have been tasked with heading in and saving and pretty much taking down the pirates and saving the hostages on the ship, which Cap is able to do very easily as Cap jumps down the ship without a parachute, because he's Captain America. Takes down most of the pirates with ease, while his backup kind of parachutes in a little later, when most of the pirates gone. As such, Cap and these S.H.I.E.L.D. agents manage to free the hostages, with Cap taking down the head of the pirates. But he does wonder where Black Widow was, because she was tasked with providing backup, and she kind of went silent in her end for a little bit. So Cap goes to see her, and it turns out that she was sent here on a secondary mission. It turns out that this ship had some shield intel, and Black Widow was tasked with going after it. Cap, of course, is a little angry at this because his priority was saving the hostages, but Black Widow says it was like, you had your job, I had mine, so she kind of tries to justify it. But Cap is not exactly happy that she prioritized information over innocent lives. As such, Cap, after everything's taken care of on the ship, goes to the Triskelion, the home base for S.H.I.E.L.D., and kind of confronts Fury about this. Fury kind of tells him that this was just him compartmentalizing. Cap, Black Widow was there to get intel, while Cap was there to make sure no one innocents got hurt, because both were kind of good for their own because both were kind of perfect for the job sets he assigned them to. But Cap, of course, is still angry about this because he wasn't informed about every aspect of the mission. But Fury and he feels like that the only way you can have trust like that is for it to go both ways. And so Fury, kind of as a show of faith and as a way of trying to show Cap that he's on the up and up, introduces him to a project that they've been kind of keeping under wraps for a while. Something that's above Cap's the amount of intel Cap's supposed to know about. And what this is something called Project Insight. And what Project Insight is going to do is that they're launching 3 high-tech S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarriers. They're armed to the teeth and equipped with a high-tech guidance system and weapons manufacturing and weapons that are supposed to work with satellites in the atmosphere and pretty much be pinpoint targeting. And the helicarriers are meant to pretty much be, I guess you could say meant to be kind of proactive. It meant to be a way of proactively taking out threats. As Fury puts it, with these helicarriers in the air, they'll be able to take down a lot of threats before they become problems. Cap, however, is not exactly happy about this because he thinks that this is wrong. Because this thing could take down a lot of threats, but well, you kind of need to be a criminal. You kind of need to do something. You kind of need to break the law first before you're considered a criminal. And yeah, I kind of agree with that. I understand the argument of taking down threats before they become threats, saving lives. And yes, fair enough, but in order for someone to be a criminal, they actually have to have broken a law first. You can't arrest someone who's thinking of, imagine if when you're at imagine if you're out doing something and you have a little voice in your head that wants you to do something bad. You see this can and you think, oh, I want that. Just because you have the potential, but of course the rational parts of your mind would still say no, that's wrong, don't do that, and so it's filtered out and you move on with your life, not having broken that law. Pretty much, unless you actually go through with it and actually try to hurt someone or try to break the law or do something, I'm sorry to say you're not a criminal. And that unfortunately goes for other such threats, higher threats, more personal threats. Yes, if someone was making a bomb, if someone made a bomb with the intent on using it, you could arrest them for intent with the intent because he had intent. But if he had the idea, but hadn't done anything yet, I'm sorry to say that you can't really arrest them until he actually does something. It's a sad truth, but it's the truth. Again, I'm not saying that it's a perfect thing, but unless they show criminal intent, they're not criminals yet. Which I think is what Captain America is trying to argue. And of course, Nick says, "Well, you've done some. You can't really pitch that when you've done some. Considering what you've done in the war, it's yeah, we had to compromise some things, but it was all in the name of freedom, and this is just not freedom right here." Sorry about that minor interruption. Anyway, as I was saying, pretty much this gets Cap kind of thinking, and that's where he has his little meeting with Peggy. We see him going to see someone that's introduced in this film. A former soldier by the name of Sam Wilson. he was a like with Cap, he's a former soldier, though unlike Cap, he's no longer serving. And he spends his days as, I think, veterans. I think as the head of VA, which I think means Veterans Assistance. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I haven't really looked it up. Pretty much, it's a support group for veterans who are dealing with kind of PTSD and trying to actually kind of readjust to having a normal life. And so Cap actually did briefly talk with him, and Cap did briefly meet him at the beginning of the film because apparently they have the same jogging trap, and because Cap has a super soldier serum in him, he moves faster than ever. He moved faster than him, so at several points during the track, he kept passing Sam. And so Cap and he and Cap kind of have a talk, and we learn that Sam was once in the army, and he used to fly, but he kind of left when his wingman got shot out of the air and crashed. So he just kind of got out while the getting was good, and just kind of wanted to put it all behind him. And I think he gives Cap his address just in case he wants to look him up. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, but then we also cut to Nick Fury, who it turns out has the drive with all the data that Black Widow got from the ship. He puts it in his computer and wants to try and look up the files, but for some reason they're encrypted and he's locked out of them. He tries to encrypt them, but apparently they've been above his pay grade. And then when he tries to use his director override on him, because that pretty much can pretty much cut a clear path through anything, he's once again shut out. And he's wondering what the heck's going on, and it turns out that apparently someone used his name to encrypt the files. Someone said that that was with Nick Fury's clearance that these files are locked. And so Fury starts wondering if something's up. And so I think, combined with what's going on with Captain America, what Cap said about Project Insight, Nick Fury starts having second thoughts. So he decides that he should go to a friend. In this case, I think the Secretary of Defense, don't quote me if correct me if I'm wrong, Alexander Pierce. I think pretty much he's equal in pay grade to Nick Fury, has just as high a position, and he also answers the higher ups of Shield, like a higher council, I suppose. And so Fury goes to talk to him. Fury manages to tells him that he wants to impart a vote because he wants to delay Project Insight a bit because he thinks that something's up. And while Pierce is not exactly forthcoming about this, he does say he'll see what he can do on the promise that Fury can get Tony Stark to appear at his niece's birthday party. However, Fury does still know that something's not right, so on his drive home, he manages to get in contact with Maria Hill and tries to get her to and says that he wants her to come down as quickly as possible. But as he's driving, he's suddenly attacked, as his car actually gets rammed into by 4 police cars, all sandwiching him in before a SWAT team arrives, and all of them just start opening fire on him, damaging the car, keeping him in place, just all that stuff. Fury is able to hold them off by engaging the car's defense systems by getting a little minigun and shooting out at them, and even managing to reboot the propulsion system on the car to get him out of it, to back up and get him out of there, which I think is kind of like an autopilot, but whatever. Which leads to a whole giant chase through the streets of New York as these police officers are after him and just trying to shoot at him, and he's just constantly trying to get away from them. He keeps maneuvering out. Keeps trying to outmaneuver them, and eventually he does. And through some extra work, he does manage to kind of get the better of them. I think because he managed to trick 2 of them into getting hit by a car, and I think the other 2 he managed to blast away. But don't quote me on that. But bottom line, he does manage to get them off his tail, but he realizes that something's up, and he's been compromised because they got the drop on him. He's the head of Shield. No, if someone has that much intel, they're a very big threat. As such, he tries to look for an underground site when suddenly someone else appears. Someone in a strange black face mask, body armor, and with a metal arm with a star on the shoulder appears and manages to take down Fury's car by throwing a little bomb on, by throwing a bomb under it, like I think either skidding underneath or jumping across. Either way, he gets a bomb on the undercarriage of the car that causes that causes it to explode and send his car flying into the air and crashing to the ground. However, this mysterious man tries going up to Fury, but Fury manages to escape by cutting a hole into the sewers beneath New York. As such, later on, we see Steve coming back to his apartment at night and meeting with his neighbor. And however, he does try to talk her into, tries to ask her out on a date, but she declines. Though, and this is, but she get. You're a weirdo, you know that. Sorry, dog. But then she tells him that she thinks he left a stereo on in his apartment. So Steve kind of is a little concerned about that, so he goes to check it out, and he finds Fury there nursing his wounds. Fury says that he's there because the wife kicked him out, and Steve says, "I didn't know you had a wife." It's like, there's a lot of things you don't know about me. But then Fury pulls out like a little tablet or phone or something, and it reads that there are ears everywhere, and it pretty much makes it clear that he thinks he's being watched and someone's spying on him. Cap tries playing along, and he asks, "Well, who else knows you're here?" And it's like, "Just my friends," and he writes on the little pad, "You and me." So the only people that know that that he's there are Fury and Cap. Though they quickly learn that someone else is there as Fury is shot at through the window of Cap's apartment. As Fury's on the ground, he manages to give Cap the drive with all the encrypted data on it, and he tells him, "Trust no one." And then he passes out. When suddenly Steve's neighbor comes in, revealing herself as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., who apparently was spying on Cap on orders of Nick Fury to try and keep him safe. As such, Cap tells her to call the medics while he goes in pursuit of a shooter, and he manages to try and chase after the guy, jumping across going from building to building until he eventually tries to knock him down by throwing his shield at him, because Cap apparently brings his shield everywhere, which I kind of like. Always prepared. But the guy actually manages to catch it with his metal arm and then chuck it back at Cap. And when Cap was distracted, the guy managed to escape. But in the meantime, though, Fury is rushed to the hospital, and as such, Maria Hill and Black Widow are called in, and Black Widow's not exactly happy with that. Is not exactly is not really doing well when she learns that Nick Fury's been injured, and even worse when he's pronounced dead. Because of course Cap does want to know what the heck's going on. Of course, Cap's still a little confused by this, trying to take it all in, and he does try to leave, but Black Widow wants to know what exactly he was doing what exactly was Fury doing in Cap's apartment. Cap says he doesn't know, but Black Widow can see right through him, and she knows that he's hiding something. However, Cap suddenly gets called back to Triskelion because someone wants to see him. However, before he goes, he has the drive and decides he needs to hide it, and so he hides it in a little vending machine in the hospital. How he gets it in there, I don't know. Maybe he broke it in. I don't know. Either way, it turns out the person that called him was Alexander Pierce, who it turns out did a bit of digging, and it turns out that the pirates the pirates that attacked the S.H.I.E.L.D. ship, it turns out that Nick Fury was behind hiring them. It took a lot of time to go through them, and it's not confirmed or denied throughout the rest of the film, considering the source, which we'll get into later. But for now, I'm going to treat it as fact because it kind of lines up with what was going on. Because apparently Nick Fury... But either way, yeah, Nick Fury is supposedly the one behind the pirates, which even Cap kind of thinks is odd, considering who Nick Fury is. And of course, Pierce kind of agrees with him. He thinks that Fury would have done that Fury wouldn't be the kind of man to just sick pirates on his own people. So he thinks that he thinks there's something going on with him. He thinks that there's something going on, and he does start to explain how he and Fury knew each other. Apparently, he and Fury were assigned. There was I forgot. I don't have the exact details, but it was pretty much just they were on a mission. Pierce wanted to do peace talks. Fury wanted to charge in. Pierce had a higher pay grade than Fury, but Fury disobeyed him and charged in. It turns out that Fury was right because the people weren't really open for peace talking. As such, with that tenacity, Pierce promoted Fury to head of Shield. Pretty much, though, you also get kind of a dark vibe that from Pierce, as he states that he thinks that if in order to rebuild that, sometimes if he like, I have the quote right here. Hold on a sec. Let me just pull it up. It is. Where is it? Sometimes to build a better world, you gotta tear the old one down. And he kind of makes other comments that imply that there's a little something more sinister going on beneath the surface. But he also says that he thinks that it's no coincidence that Fury was in Cap's apartment, and he wants to know if what happened. And while Cap doesn't tell him about the drive, he does tell him that the last words Fury said to him were "trust no one." At which point, Cap leaves his office. Cap then takes the elevator, trying to go down to the ground floor. But as he goes down, little by little, the elevator gets filled up with more employees, agents, and so forth. And Cap starts noticing some weird things. Like, one of them is a guy that he's been talking to throughout the beginning of this film, that he apparently has had a kind of good relationship with, kind of a camaraderie. But he notices that some are a little one guy's got his hand on a gun in his holster. Some look a little nervous and look a little scared. A businessman looks a little nervous and scared. There's a more abundance of soldiers. And as more people crowd into the elevator, Cap ultimately finds that he's surrounded. And so as they're going down the elevator, Cap says, "Before we get started, does anyone want to get off?" And it just leads to an all-out brawl in the elevator as all of them assault Cap at once. All of them just trying to get a hit in. All of them trying to tase him with these weird taser sticks. One of the regular suits tries to get a clamp on his arm to clamp to the side of the elevator, but Cap still manages to kind of power through that. Even when they do manage to get him clamped on, he still manages to pull away and kind of put up a fight. And pretty much it just ends with Cap knocking out everybody in the elevator. However, one of these SHIELD agents, hold on, I wrote down his name, because he is important later. It is Sitwell. His name is Agent Sitwell. He says that he wants a strike team on the floor the elevator is coming down on. So when they arrive, Cap cuts the lines in the elevator and causes it to go down to the ground floor. Though at that point, more agents go down there to try and meet Cap. And his response: jump out the nearest window to a terrace below. And rather than breaking all of his bones, he actually survives because he's Captain America, bitch. He can do whatever he wants. As such, a high alert is put out, and pretty much they're just trying to lock down SHIELD as Cap is racing out of there, and he manages to get his motorcycle before they close the gates to the garage, and he tries riding across the bridge before they put out an airship to try and shoot him down, and Cap manages to throw his shield into one of the turbines, causing the ship to crash. Him jumping on it, grabbing his shield, and jumping off until back on his motorcycle and getting out of there. And he manages to get away, and it's just such a kick-ass action scene that it's just so good. But back at SHIELD, they pretty much Sitwell and Pierce, because Pierce is the one that ultimately put this out on him, to put all this hit on Cap, pretty much order an all-points bulletin for Captain America. They want to know where he is, because they know he knows more than he's willing to say. Sorry, hold on a sec. Sorry, very hot and I'm very thirsty. But pretty much Cap knows that SHIELD is now after him. And he needs to know and so he realizes that he needs to get that drive back from the hospital. However, when he goes back to the hospital incognito, he finds that the slot they put the drive in is missing, only to find Black Widow behind him with a stick of gum because it was hidden in the little gum section. As such, Cap confronts her and wants to know exactly what the hell is going on. And I guess I forgot to mention. So this is something I forgot to mention. When Cap and Black Widow were alone with Nick Fury's hospital room, they did briefly talk about the assailant that attacked Fury, and Cap actually described him to Black Widow. So he is trying to confront her, and Black Widow said that she had did a little digging on the assailant to Nick Fury, and says that it's someone called the Winter Soldier. Essentially, sorry, an urban legend in the Black Ops world. Someone who's so under the radar that the only records that exist of him are rumors. He's pretty much just a ghost. However, Black Widow does have experience with him, as apparently on one of her missions she was hired to keep someone safe, and when she was covering him using her body, the Winter Soldier shot right through her just to get to him, and she has the scar to prove it. Pretty much nobody knows who the Winter Soldier is. He's almost untouchable. He's almost untouchable, and he's supposed to be one of the best. So, if someone sick the Winter Soldier on Nick, then he must have had known something that they really wanted to keep silent. As such, they decide that they need to find out what's on the drive, because whatever was on this drive is what caused Shield to pretty much put Shield, because whatever's on this drive was enough to put Cap on Shield's most wanted list. As such, Black Widow decides that she's going to work with Cap to go under the radar for this. And so they both go undercover and manage to go into, I guess, a little Apple store, and they input the drive into a computer, try and get access to the files. However, it also has a little kind of a tracker on it that when the instant it's activated, it sends out an APB to Shield, and Black Widow says they have at least 9 minutes before Shield gets there before they're caught. Black Widow then tries her best to try and hack into it, and she does manage to and she says that there's a sophisticated AI built into the drive that's rewriting it every seconds. But she manages to get through the walls enough so that to try to pinpoint where the files on this drive were created, to a little area in New Jersey, but don't quote me on that. Hold on, Wheaton, New Jersey. Sorry, I knew it was some writer or something affiliated with nerd culture, but yeah, Wheaton, New Jersey. As such, they grab the drive and head out before S.H.I.E.L.D. can get to them, finding different ways to hide. And they manage to steal a car and drive out to New Jersey. And it turns out that the place that the drive was bringing them to was actually the boot camp that Cap went to when he was training in the Super Soldier program. Being there brings back memories and makes Cap feel nostalgia. But while he's there, he realizes that something's not right, as there seems to be a weapons area near the bunks, which he thinks is not right. That's not supposed to be there. It's like it shouldn't be within 200 feet of the barracks. So there's something there. As such, they go in, and when they do some digging, they find a little secret lab there, where that's apparently where S.H.I.E.L.D. was founded. It has the old logo. It's got old files. Even has kind of a library. It even has pictures of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s founders, which in this case were Howard Stark and Peggy Carter. However, I thought Stark and I went back to Tony. However, as they're investigating, as Cap and Black Widow are investigating, Cap manages to find finds that a bookshelf seems to be hiding a hidden elevator, which he finds even more suspicious. Like, if you wanted to get your secret lab, why would you have a hidden elevator? As such, they access the elevator, and it leads them to a ground floor that leads to another hidden lab. This one full of all these terminals, and it's essentially like an old-time computer that runs on reels, old reels, old technology. Just pretty much where you had to have an entire room it was obviously created back in the times you had to have a whole room just for one computer. As such, they're wondering why did the drive lead them here if it looks like there's nothing there that they should be compatible for, till they find the only new thing there is a drive is like a USB port. As such, they put the drive in, and suddenly all the computers in the room activate, all turning on at once, and suddenly a camera on a nearby computer terminal starts activating and starts going on, and the screen starts lighting up with these green lines to resemble a face. And this face is Dr. Zola from Captain America: The First Avenger. At first they think it's a recording. At first they think it's a recording because how could... But then when the actual thing actually responds to them saying, "I'm not a recording," they actually shot because it is actually Zola. It's not a recording. It's him inside the computer. It turns out that because apparently he died in 1973, but what really happened was that he was diagnosed with a terminal illness that would kill him. And so before he died, he managed to download his entire brain into this computer. Like the entire room is him. Every single thing there is what he's connected to. As such, they want to know what the heck he's doing down here, or why he's in this base. And Zola kind of drops a very big bombshell, and kind of one of the biggest twists of this entire movie, and possibly the entire franchise. Zola reveals that when S.H.I.E.L.D. had been founded, he had been hired on to do for his technical expertise. Black Widow says that they did hire a group of German scientists so they could use their knowledge, but it turns out that that hiring of Zola ultimately was a very big mistake, as through him, as I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but through him, it turns out that Hydra managed to seed itself into S.H.I.E.L.D. from its very inception. Like, ever since it was founded by Howard Stark and Peggy Carter, S.H.I.E.L.D. was infested with Hydra. It's Hydra agents, and to the point where it became so a part of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s infrastructure that you couldn't tell, that unless you were one of the higher ups, you couldn't tell who was S.H.I.E.L.D. and who was Hydra. And over the years, Hydra had been using S.H.I.E.L.D.'s resources to pretty much shape history to the way it wanted, just controlling things in the background. And if someone did something that would go against what they wanted, they would have them taken out via the Winter Soldier. With one big example that we get in just a brief glance, Howard Stark. It turns out that Howard Stark was apparently doing something that Hydra didn't want him doing, and they don't show it, that's for a later film, but it is heavily implied that they sicked the Winter Soldier on him to silence him. Because whenever he mentions that someone had to be silenced, because he's showing all this on his monitors, they've been apparently doing that with the Winter Soldier. When they mentioned taking someone out, they show the Winter Soldier and articles about an unknown gunman or something. Just pretty much, the Winter Soldier. Because these people have pretty much been alive and well for a long time, and and because they seeded themselves into a top secret government organization, they've almost been practically untraceable. And I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the biggest and I think the best twist the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever produced, because this is so groundbreaking and ground-shaking. Pretty much, it just rocks the foundation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because ever since Iron Man, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been there in all these other films, and they've usually been considered the good guys. Like, they've had their own but they had their own secrets and their seedy dealings and so forth. Just other spy stuff that you would expect them to have. Like, and even in some cases, they've operated in some gray areas. But at the end of the day, you thought they were pretty much the good guys, right? But then you suddenly learn that Hydra has been with S.H.I.E.L.D. the whole time. That the good guys unknowingly allied themselves and gave information to the bad guys. That the bad guys are running around masquerading as the good guys, using their resources to cause more panic, trying to drive people to war and panic, to try and just subtly gain control. And it suddenly makes you think, it suddenly kind of freaks you out, because you suddenly start wondering who you can trust. Who in S.H.I.E.L.D. is a good guy? Who is a bad guy? And because S.H.I.E.L.D. is so apparent, such a big government organization, they have their hands in everything. So to suddenly learn that these people that you thought were so trustworthy and you were and had all these nice people and had such good camaraderie, like with Phil Coulson, Nick Fury, all that stuff, you think that they're suddenly good guys. But then to suddenly learn that everything they worked for was being undermined beneath their noses, it's just a big shock. And it hits the characters just as much as it hits the audience, because it makes you realize the bad guys are in control right now. And and it's not a recent thing. They've been in control all along. You just didn't realize it. And yeah, Cap is obviously angry as this revelation it makes him so mad that he punches the screen that Zola was using to communicate with them, which just causes Zola to transfer to another screen. However, Zola reveals but Zola continues going on saying that Hydra learned its lesson from the Red Skull. Like in their day, when they were an offshoot from the Nazis, they tried to take people's freedom. They thought people's freedom couldn't be trusted with their own well-being. But they realized that you couldn't just take people's freedom, or else they'd fight back. With Captain America being a living example of that plan coming back and knocking them in the face. As such, the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. angle was them trying to come at it from a different angle. The reason they've been trying to do all this subterfuge over the years was because they were trying to get people to willingly give up their freedoms, which is where Project Insight comes in. It's meant to be their next big step in their plan to pretty much completely take over the world. So of course they're wondering, well, what? But they said that before they did that, there was one. But they want to know exactly how can this. It's like how will this benefit you? But Zola kind of shuts his mouth as he reveals that he's actually just been stalling them. And it turns out that the instant they brought him online, he alerted S.H.I.E.L.D., or in this case Hydra, and they launched a missile right at this base. And the reason he's been telling Cap all this is just to keep him in Black and Widow in one place long enough for the missile to come in and kill them. While they're able to grab the drive and run off and be able to grab the drive, unfortunately the missile hits the base and they're buried under rubble. At which point helicopters come to shake the rubble, and they manage to survive because Cap managed to block it with his shield, and because his shield is the best thing in the world. And they once again run off, and they don't know where they can go now. Because now they know that anyone that they talk, because now they know that their enemy could literally be could be anybody everywhere. Because if Shield and because before there was something just a little bit seedy with Shield, something was going on, and now to learn that Shield can't be trusted at all, they don't know what to do. They don't know who to turn to. Anybody that was one of their allies in Shield could easily be an agent of Hydra, so they have no idea who they can trust. Well, Cap has an idea. I don't know if Sam gave him his address or not, or maybe Cap looked it up. I don't know. But bottom line, Cap manages to, but he does manage to find Sam's house and asks if they can be there, and Sam lets them stay while they recuperate. And of course we do get some nice little character moments as we see Widow kind of having an existential crisis, because she thought she had turned over a new leaf when she went from the KGB to S.H.I.E.L.D., but now to suddenly learn that she had been really working for Hydra, it kind of upsets her to a degree. But Cap manages to reassure her, and they're trying to figure out who they can talk to try and get more insight into Project Insight. And such, they're able to put together that with this project because something I forgot to mention. With the revelation that Nick Fury apparently hired the pirates, Project Insight's disavowal was eventually Project Insight's slowdown was downvoted by the higher ups because they think that whatever's going on, they need Project Insight now more than ever, which still kind of backs my theory that maybe the pirates were a setup, though it could easily be wrong. Though again, it's neither confirmed nor denied that he set it up, so again, I'm just going to go back with the Nick Fury probably set it up, because it would make sense if he did, but whatever. And so they're able to piece together something very important. Alexander Pierce is in fact part of Hydra, and it turns out, he is actually kind of the current head of Hydra. as after the Hydra agents go in to check the rubble of the base and find no body and don't find either Cap or Widow's bodies, but instead just some boot prints. They said they need to call in the big guns, and so at Pierce's house, he's met by the Winter Soldier, who's there, who Pierce says he wants him to go after and kill Captain America. But that means that at the same time they think that someone else might know what's going on, and so they go to Agent Sitwell, the guy who ordered the strike team on Cap. And so they realize they need to find a way to get his attention. And Sam decides that he wants to volunteer to help them. Like, Cap doesn't want to let him in, doesn't want to do this because he says that you got out for a reason and it's a very good one. I don't want to pull you back in. But Sam says, "What do you mean?" It's like, come on, Captain America needs my help. Why would I say no? However, they kind of wonder what he can do. But it turns out that, he soon reveals what his tech was when he was a part of the military, and Cap, when he said that he flew, and Cap assumed that he was a pilot. But Sam says, "I never said I was a pilot. I just said I flew." And so he gives him his file, and it turns out he was part of something else. Something that had the code name Falcon. And so Cap and Widow decide to let him join their little team. As such, they manage to find Agent Sitwell as he's leaving a meeting with a senator. This being the same senator from Iron Man 2 that wanted Tony to give them the Iron Man technology. And yeah, it turns out that he's Hydra 2, which just puts another spin on the whole douchebaggery angle as the guy gets close to Sitwell, whispers "Hail Hydra," and then walks off. But Sam manages to hack his phone and make it look like Pierce is calling him and says that there's going to be a car in the back. I want you to get into it, or else someone's going to shoot you. And he sees a little red dot in his tie, and as he sees that there's a sniper on him. As such, we cut to like a little later as Cap and Widow are bringing him to a building, and they want to get as much intel as they can on Project Insight. The guy tries playing dumb, saying he doesn't know anything, and so their response, they push him to the edge of a building. And the guy says, "I know you too well, Cap. You're not just... Come on, I know you're not going to do this, Cap. It's like, it's not in you." It's like, "You're right." But it's in her. And Black Widow just pushes him off the building, only for him to actually be flown up by Sam Wilson in his wing harness. And yep, he is in fact the superhero Falcon. This is once again not his film, so I'm not going to go into his history, but I will say I have seen him before. Honestly, I thought he'd be wearing red and white, but I don't really know much about him. But this is a cool way to introduce him, especially when you show that he was a former military like Cap. And yeah, he's actually cool without the wings, so yeah, I like him. But yeah, this managed to scare Sitwell enough so that he finally reveals exactly what's going on. Because it turns out that on the drive, it turns out the files that they had were in fact files on an algorithm that Zola created. And what this algorithm is supposed to do is that when the helicarriers go up, the algorithm will feed into the satellites, and using people's online personal history, it'll be able to find anybody that's a potential threat to Hydra. Like anyone that is currently a threat, could be a threat. Like that means everybody, like Captain America, Bruce Banner, he even drops the name Stephen Strange. Anybody out there that could be a possible threat to Hydra now or in the future is a target. And that's what Project Insight's main goal is. Take out all possible threats before they become threats to Hydra. That's what Project Insight was this whole time. However, Sitwell's also nervous because he realizes that with what he's just revealed, Pierce is not going to let him live. But they still grab him and they bring them with them in their car. But as they're driving, they're attacked by the Winter Soldier, who jumps out of their car and pulls Pierce right out of the vehicle and throws him into oncoming traffic. And yeah, he's dead. He's dead. At which point it leads to an all-out battle and shootout in the street, on the bridge that they're on, and slash in the street. as we see Cap, Widow, and Falcon fighting against the Winter Soldier and other Hydra/Shield agents as they come in and start shooting at them. More agents come in, and it just leads to an all-out brawl as we see all of them fighting the Winter Soldier in different ways, at distance, up close, and it's clear this guy is very well trained. He's able to outmaneuver them, outfight them. His robotic arm is just able to beat them down. It's just a really fun fight scene. I'll give that movie I'll just say this about the film right now. The action scenes are some of the most kick-ass action scenes I've seen in the films. Well, in these films, we still have the cool stuff that we got in Thor with him and his weather powers, but all the action in the scene in this movie are so damn fun to watch. They can range from just holy crap violence to just action-oriented violence. It manages to make every fight scene, big or small, feel like an actual fight. Like, you can actually feel like the blood, sweat, and tears. You can see the effort, and even the stuff and even the bigger, spectacular stuff, it all looks so damn fun. It's so intricate, so kick-ass. It all looks awesome, and this fight scene is no exception. I can't describe it. I can't give it justice. I just say, if you haven't seen this movie yet, and if you're watching this, why haven't you seen the movie yet? Go out and see it. The fight scenes are just with the fight scenes, they are so good. To the small, to the big, they're all so good, and this scene is no exception. But, again, I just can't give it justice. You have to see the film just for that. I'm sorry. But anyway, yeah. Eventually, the fight leads to Cap and the Winter Soldier fighting hand-to-hand, and it's a very tense fight, as they are clearly a match for each other. It's obvious the Winter Soldier is kind of like Hydra's version for Hydra's equivalent of Cap. But as they're fighting through, Cap manages to get a hold of his mask, and while the Winter Soldier is able to knock him up, and while the Winter Soldier does get knocked aside, the mask actually falls off. And so Cap manages to get a good look at the Winter Soldier's face, and it turns out it's Bucky, which shocks Cap like nothing. As, he sees him, he recognizes him, and he's just like, Bucky? And Bucky's response, who the hell is Bucky? However, before the Winter Soldier can get close enough again, Falcon opens fire on him and tries shooting him off, but at that point, the SHIELD agents the SHIELD/Hydra agents come in and just start shooting at them, and they manage to grab Black Widow and Falcon, and they ultimately get Cap on his knees with his hands behind his head. They don't execute him right there on the street because there are too many eyes, so they lock them up into a back of the van and drive him off, but throughout this whole thing, Cap is just in utter shock. Out of everything, this gets him the most. To learn that not only is his friend alive, but he's working for the bad guys. And I'll get into his history right now. Because they do talk about it while they're being escorted in the back of the van. The back of the van with as they're being hauled away by the bad guys. It turns out, remember back in Captain America: The First Avenger when I think I mentioned how Cap saved Bucky found Bucky in this weird room where he was mumbling about something? Well, it turns out that Zola performed some experiments on him in that, and Cap thinks that it was those experiments that helped Bucky survive the fall off the train in Captain America: The First Avenger. And pretty much what had happened from there is that Hydra/Zola managed to find Bucky and pretty much took him in. However, unfortunately, in the fall, Bucky lost his left arm, which is why he has the metal arm. So as such, they took him in and gave him a new arm, and pretty much reprogrammed his mind. Pretty much oriented him to, pretty much made it so that the only thing he thinks about is his next target. Makes the next target, and plants him with all this battle information, pretty much just making him their perfect soldier. And like Cap, they put him on ice, though this one's controlled cryogenics, making it so that every time they needed something, they would thaw him out, and because of the brainwashing they'd done to him, he pretty much became their perfect assassin, dealing with any threats silently and under the radar, so that they can continue on with their mission. As such, Cap is just dumbstruck because this is his friend, but he knows that because of all this, especially since he realized that Bucky didn't recognize him. But, unfortunately, Black Widow is also injured because in the battle she had gotten shot. But as they ask for medical attention, of course, one of the guards shows off his little zap stick to try and get to his taser stick. only for him to turn it on the other guard and knock him out. It turns out this other guard was actually Maria Hill in disguise. As such, they manage to escape, and they go to kind of an underground bunker area where they met with another guy who says that they can give Black Widow attention. And Maria Hill says no, she'll want to see him. And so they bring him to a back room, and they find Nick Fury, who it turns out is actually alive. It turns out Fury, as part of his plan, as part of his gambit, realized that they weren't going to stop chasing after him until they thought he was dead. So he faked his death, inducing some kind of serum that was created by Bruce Banner to help him with kind of control his heart rate, because it will bring your heart rate down to 1. And while it didn't exactly work for Banner, because it was obviously meant to control the Hulk, S.H.I.E.L.D. commandeered it to use for their own purposes. Or in this case, Nick Fury used it to slow his heart rate to make it look like he had pretty much flatlined. As such, he's been recuperating in secret while everyone thinks he's dead, and he's just trying to gather as much intel as he can. In the meantime, though, with him alive, they tell him that Pierce is working with Hydra, and that Hydra's been embedded in S.H.I.E.L.D. this whole time, and what Project Insight is, that they're going to take out any threat, all potential threats to Hydra, and so they realize that they need to organize a plan to take down the helicarriers, and their plan is just simply to sabotage their targeting system. The targeting system, because there are 3 chips in one on each helicarrier that orients their targeting system, and they now have their own chips in all 3 of them. Their big plan is that they need to get on all the helicarriers and input all these chips in. It'll allow them to hijack their systems and pretty much take down. Well, and short version, it'll allow them to take control of the target systems on all 3 helicarriers and shoot all 3 down. Fury wants to use this opportunity that they can go in and try and salvage whatever they can from S.H.I.E.L.D., but at this point, Cap says no more S.H.I.E.L.D. It was because it was keeping secrets and being an espionage agent that allowed Hydra to take advantage of S.H.I.E.L.D. so easily. If they're going to do this, they're going to need to take it all down. If they want to expose Hydra to the world, they need to that S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to go down too. And while Fury isn't exactly happy with this, he's kind of outvoted, and so they all have to agree. And so they all agree to this, but they also need to think, and so they have to come up with a plan to get these chips onto the helicarriers. In the meantime, with the Winter Soldier, he went back to his base, I suppose, with all his people. And Pierce goes to see him, and he wants a debriefing on what happened within the mission, but the Winter Soldier is actually kind of out of it. As it turns out that when Cap called him Bucky, it did manage to stir some memories in him. And as he remembers when he fell off the train, him being carried away, him getting the metal arm, being frozen, all that stuff, and he starts realizing that he knows Cap. However, and they say that he's been out of the cryo for too long. That this is probably going to negatively affect him. So, but Pierce just says no, just forget. It's like no, you don't. No, we still need him. Just wipe him and try again. As such, they strap him into a chair, put a little rubber thing in his mouth, and they shock him to try and get him to focus back on the mission. But in the meantime, the higher ups of S.H.I.E.L.D. are invited to the launching of the helicarriers, as come in, and Pierce gives them these little ID tags to help them get through biosecurity and so forth. But as they're going through, there's a little comm center. They're led up to the main room where there's a comm center. But at the comm center, they realize they're having some interference, and so one of them, played by the guy who plays Abed. Sorry, I don't remember his name, but the guy who played Abed in Community, he's there. He goes to check it out, and when he opens the door, he finds Maria Hill, Falcon, and Captain America right there asking to be let in. As such, as Pierce is pouring everyone a drink in his office, the comm system goes off, and Cap spills the beans. He tells them that Hydra has been embedded in S.H.I.E.L.D. from its inception, and that everyone there needs to be on their toes, because anybody in there could be S.H.I.E.L.D. or could be Hydra. It could be someone next to you. It could be you. It could be some person sitting next to you. It could be a lot of people. He just pretty much tells them that Hydra is there. Hydra is in S.H.I.E.L.D. They've been there since the start, and he's gonna try and take them down. And that pretty much Project Insight is Hydra's final step towards finally taking over the world. And Cap is gonna do whatever he can to take it down. And if someone wants to stand by, and if you can pretty much you can stand by him or you just can't. And so you can stand by him or do nothing. Stand by him or try and stop him. As such, with the pieces on the table, all the Hydra agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pretty much just drop all pretenses of cover, and just kind of leads to S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of self-destructing on itself. As in the main room where they were launching the helicarriers, that one agent, I still don't remember his name, tells the guy in charge of it to just launch the helicarriers right away, but the guy refuses. And of course he tries pulling his gun on him, but then it leads to everyone else pulling out their guns, and while there are at least two other people that are working with the guy, that are working with him, it's pretty clear that this guy is outgunned. But he still opens fire anyway, and in the turmoil, the guy who is in control of everything gets injured, and the agent just hits the launch sequence anyway, and so the helicarriers start going off. In the meantime, though, the higher up, the S.H.I.E.L.D. higher ups, the council, see Pierce, and Pierce has also dropped all pretenses, and he's trying to make it sound like this is all a good thing, that they'll be able for the security of 7 billion people, they just got to sacrifice like 2 billion. They're fine. They're good. It's like this is. It's like yeah, like we can have peace through that. We can have peace, and all you have to do is just flip the switch. But they say if it's your switch, I'm not pressing it. They're pretty much making it clear that they do not want anything to do with his stupid plan. Only for one of them to suddenly start kicking ass and taking out some of the guards, and even pointing a gun at Pierce. And it turns out it's Black Widow. She has like this high-tech camouflage thing that you can put over your face that make you look like anybody. And she put it on to disguise herself as one of the higher-ups, taking it off. And the reason she's here in the room is because she's going to try and expose S.H.I.E.L.D. Is that she's here to pretty much get all of S.H.I.E.L.D's secrets out into the open. Because if if that's all out in the open, then so are all. Because if all S.H.I.E.L.D. secrets are out there, then odds are all of Hydra's will be out there too. So she needs to send it out to the World Wide Web while Cap and Falcon have to get the chips onto the helicarriers before they open fire on all those people. As such, Falcon manages to fly through some ships, and Cap even gives him advice and he asks, well, how do I tell the good guys from the bad guys? And Cap says, if they're shooting at you, they're probably the bad guys. And so it just leads to an all-out aerial battle as Falcon is flying around, the helicarriers are shooting at him, but he manages to get to the control rooms, and he managed to take out two of the targeting reticle and put in his own, but there's only one left. These guys on the ground trying to get some air support out for Cap to try and help him, but that's when the Winter Soldier comes in and starts taking them all out one by one, until he eventually kills a guy before he can take off in his own ship, and then he commandeers it to go after Cap. But in the meantime, though, back with Pierce and Black Widow, apparently in order to finally release all this information, they need the clearance. They need the access of two higher ups in S.H.I.E.L.D. And while Pierce is one, they don't have another until Fury comes on his own helicopter. And while Pierce says he's happy that he's alive because they were friends, because they were friends at one point. Hold on a second. Sorry about that small little hygienic issue, if you know what I mean. Anyway, as I was saying, while he's happy to see him, Fury pretty much is just like he's had it up. He's just kind of had it with all his crap. Even asking him, like he thought, because he just kind of disgusted by him. But he says that he's just kind of keep playing this like Fury, close to the chest, not trusting anyone, etc. And Fury just kind of wonders. And Fury says, "Why'd you make me head of S.H.I.E.L.D.?" Like, because I liked your tenacity. I liked your strength. Like, it's obvious that he does respect Fury, but Fury, of course, does not want anything to do with his plan. So he's going to try and help get the information out there into the public. But of course, Pierce says, "Well, what can you do? We obviously wiped your clearance from the data." And Fury says, "True," but it turns out that he had more than one way of accessing it. The obvious way, because again, he wears an eye patch. But then he takes off his eye patch, and it turns out he had his scarred, blinded eye as a key as well. As such, with that eye and with Pierce's with the retinal scan of that and Pierce's retinal, they managed to pretty much get access to all the information, and Black Widow is able to upload it all to the World Wide Web, making every S.H.I.E.L.D. secret and by extension Hydra's secret public. Pretty much, yeah. Even if this succeeds, everyone knows that Hydra's out there, and so they can easily be taken out. However, in the meantime, though, Cap is on board. As such, Cap is on his. As such as Cap is trying to make it to the main room to the main hub, I suppose, where he can put the where he can get the target chip. As he's trying to get there, he's encountered by the Winter Soldier, who managed to get up there, and it leads to another fight between them. Cap tries fighting him off as best he can, but eventually it winds up with him but it ends up with him almost falling off the helicarrier, only managing to save himself by holding onto the side. And Falcon tries to go in to save him, but the Winter Soldier grabs him and throws him aside, and winds up with one of his wings getting destroyed, and him having to kind of abandon his jetpack and fall out of a parachute and land in one of the offices in the Triskelion, where he runs into the asshole soldier again. I mean the guy that Cap used to work with, not the Winter Soldier. But as such, Cap managed to get to the main hub, but unfortunately, the Winter Soldier is now there waiting for him again. I'm probably jumping around a bit. I'm trying to remember as best as I can. And Cap, of course, does not want to fight him. He's just because this is Bucky. This is his friend. He doesn't want to do this, but Bucky is now fully back into the Winter Soldier mind, and he does not. And while Cap does not want to fight him, he makes it clear that he doesn't. That's ultimately what has to happen as they get into this giant fight. As they get into this very, very heated and very personal battle, and throughout the whole thing, Cap is trying to get all these navigation chips out. And while he's able to get the main targeting chip out of the helicarrier, before he can put the new one in, he and Winter Soldier are constantly at odds, fighting with each other. And in the meantime, Pierce, it turns out, had those little tags that he gave all the higher ups booby trapped. All he has to do is just hit a button on his phone, and it fries a hole in their chest. As such, he uses that as leverage for Black Widow, and he tries to use that as a means of getting her out by having her escort him out. But in the meantime, Black Widow managed to tear herself, which shorts out the name tag enough for it to reboot. And before he can hit the button, Nick Fury shoots him twice. And he's able to go Black Widow, and she's able to recuperate. As such, they manage to escape, but in the meantime, Cap tries fighting the Winter Soldier as best he can, and eventually it leads to him falling down onto the window pan, because it's like an under window thing, and he manages to get him into a headlock enough so that he cuts off his oxygen supply and knocks him out, and gets him to drop the chip because during the fight he managed to grab it, and so Cap grabs it from him and tries going back up to him put it in the navigation, but the Winter Soldier, it turns out, has got back up in that short time and actually shoots him a few times. Cap almost falls down back on the helicarriers. They're getting the targeting system ready, actually trying to find as many targets as possible to shoot, and they manage to get as much as they can, but before they can open fire, Cap manages to put the last thing in, and it suddenly changes all their targets from these 2 billion people to just 3. All the helicarriers. As through these chips, Maria Hill is able to gain control of their weapons, and it causes all of them to open fire on each other, and causes all 3 of them to just crash and burn. In the meantime, as Sam sees this and runs away, and the asshole soldier is fighting, gets kind of caught in the rubble as it crashes down where he was, and and we see him later. He's got severe burns and injuries. And Stan manages to get out of the building before he gets caught in that same rubble, because he jumped onto the helicopter that that Fury took, because that's what Fury and Widow grabbed when they were done. But as everything's going on, Cap sees Bucky trapped under some debris from the debris of some of the stuff from this thing, and he manages to use his strength to lift it up. And Cap tries one more time to try and get through to him, but the Winter Soldier is just saying no. It's like, I don't know you. I don't care. It's like, I don't know you. I'm not your friend. I am just. It's like I'm supposed to kill you. That's my mission. And Cap says, no, I'm not gonna fight you. I'm not gonna do this. But he just, and even to extenuate, Cap just drops his shield, and Bucky just starts wailing on him, just punching him over and over and over. But as this is going on, Cap tells him, if I'm your mission, then finish it. After all, it's you, me to the end of the line. Which I forgot to mention this one little scene where Cap, before the mission, Cap reminisced about that, and apparently during a time before when he was still shrimpy, when he was trying to find his way in the world, Bucky offered him a chance Bucky offered him to let him was offered to let him stay at his place, but Cap declined. And Bucky said, "Well, whatever happened, just remember, I'm always there for you. It's you and me to the end of the line." Which, yeah, I forgot to mention that. Probably should have mentioned that earlier. It's a really good scene. Something we should have had. Something we probably could have had in Captain America: The First Avenger. But Cap repeated that to Bucky, and oh yeah, another thing I forgot to mention about that scene. As before this mission, Cap had to get a suit, and since his last one was probably at Shield, he had to go somewhere else. He went to the Smithsonian to grab his, and that's where we get our Stan Lee cameo as apparently he was the night guard, as he was the guard in charge, as he realizes that the suit was stolen, and he says, "I am so fired." But yeah, it's Cap saying the line, "I'm with you to the end of the line," that manages to kind of stir enough of a conscience in him so that when the helicarrier goes down and Cap falls out of it and lands into the sea, into the river below, Bucky actually jumps in and saves him, dragging him to shore. As such, Bucky then walks away, letting him live, and Cap is then brought to a hospital where Sam is there with him, and so he manages to wake up, and we start seeing a bit of the fallout from after this. As with S.H.I.E.L.D. gone, we see many people that were embedded in it now kind of trying to recuperate in other areas. Like, we see the agent that was in charge of keeping an eye on Captain America, her name is Sharon / Agent 13, now applying for the CIA. We see Maria Hill now working as HR for Stark Industries, and we even see that asshole senator from Iron Man 2 get walking out of work when suddenly the CIA comes up to arrest him. Black Widow herself is old. Hold on a sec. I think there was something else too. I think I wrote it down. But anyway, yeah. Black Widow gets called before the National Council. Gets a subpoena from the National Council, as they want to know everything that she had to do with S.H.I.E.L.D. As you know, S.H.I.E.L.D., she wants to know everything about where Fury is, but she just kind of gives as much as she knows. That what are they going to do now that with all that information out there and with S.H.I.E.L.D. no longer available? And while she doesn't know, then they say that with her history with KGB and S.H.I.E.L.D., as with all the stuff she's done for and against their country, she could easily be arrested. But she says that you're not going to arrest us because we're your best line of defense now. And so you can, if you want to arrest me, then go ahead. You'll know where I am. Which, yeah, is just kind of a big screw you to them. But in the meantime, we see the last person we see is Fury, as he goes to kind of this old truck or bunker or something. I think it was a truck. Kind of puts his eye patch down and changes into some street clothes, puts on some sunglasses, and literally just douses it with oil and burns it to the ground. In the meantime, you see Cap and Sam at Fury's where Fury is quote unquote buried in a cemetery, and Fury says that he's going to go to Europe to take, because he thinks that there's some other stuff that they can look into, and he offers Cap and Falcon a chance to come with him, but they say that but Cap says he's still got one more thing, that he still has something to do, and Falcon says that he's not really a spy, he's a soldier. As such, he kind of leaves them be. In the meantime, Black Widow meets up with Steven, and it turns out that Steve, yeah, whatever. And it turns out that he asked her to look into some stuff, and she gives him the folder, and she managed to use her old contacts to find a way to find out whatever she could about the Winter Soldier, because it turns out the last thing he wants to do is find Bucky. And so as such, the movie ends with Widow saying that she can do he can have as long as he asks out Sharon, and Sam says that he doesn't. That Cap says that Sam doesn't need to help him, but Sam says that he will anyway. And even asks, and the last line said is, "When do we start?" And the film ends. But of course, since this is Marvel, we still have our after credit scenes, and of course we have our during the credits and our post credits. And after the credits is we see a Hydra facility, as we see some Hydra agents talking about that now that thanks to Fury all their secrets are out, they're no longer safe, yada yada yada. But the guy in charge says no, it's fine. Shield and Hydra we're just two sides of the same coin that is no longer currency, that is no longer legitimate currency. They pretty much they still have some other stuff they can have, experiments and other angles they can explore. And it turns out that one of the items they have is Loki's staff, as this was the place it was transferred after it was grabbed at the end of Avengers. In the meantime, though, they begin talking about some volunteers, and pretty much, and he says the dead you can just bury, so you can bury them so deep that not even their ghosts will find them. But he does mention, but then he asks, well, what about the twins? And he says that we might need them soon enough, and the camera pans over to two cells side by side as we see a boy and a girl. The boy running super fast in his cell, and the girl levitating objects. And it's very clear that these two are the sibling pair Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And it makes it clear that they're going to be returning in a future, and we're going to see them again in a future movie. But again, we got our post-credit scene. The post-credit scene actually is in the Smithsonian with the wing dedicated to Captain America and his troop. But we see that there is someone there, someone looking through all this stuff, and we see that, and they go over to the area dedicated to Bucky, because it said he died in service to Cap, and the camera pans over, and it's revealed that that person is in fact the Winter Soldier / Bucky Barnes trying to regain his memories of the life that he lost. Which, yeah. So, straight to the point, this is a kick-ass movie. And rewatching it made me realize just how kick-ass it was. And I think the best place to start is with the acting. The acting is, once again, all around just fantastic. We, of course, got our main cast with Chris Evans. What was her name again? Scarlett Johansson. Sorry, I'm not good with names. We got Scarlett Johansson, Nick Fury, and Samuel Jackson, and... sorry, I gotta look at this again. And Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce. All of them, I think, turn in fantastic performances. Robert Redford's... first off, we get Robert Redford's acting as Alexander Pierce, I think, is just great. He's definitely, he feels like a very cocky government agent. Okay, it does kind of fit into that same typical villain mold that these movies have, but he plays his character so eloquently, so smarmy. He's just kind of a guy that acts like he's got it all planned out in his head. Even when things are going wrong, he still kind of acts all cool. Even when he's going wrong, he's kind of got the subdued, It's well, I guess we got to deal with this. And, sorry, my dog is over there and he's shaking the bed. As long as he doesn't ruin this camera. But it's really well acted and really well done, and really well done. And on top of that, there is some nice character stuff in this movie. We've gotten a lot of there's some really good character moments sprinkled out throughout the film between everybody, and this is the stuff that I think we needed more of in Captain America: The First Avenger. All these character motivation, all this character stuff, these character interactions, characters talking, characters joking, actually having these deep moments, and so forth, and etc. All of this stuff is still really dang good. We get, the chemistry we have with Cap and Black Widow, the on and off the battlefield. On the battlefield, all she's doing is work. She's trying to set him up with some girls because she thinks he needs a date, because she thinks he needs because she thinks he needs to get himself out there. And then off the battlefield, they're actually just talking like they're coworkers. They're consoling each other, kind of poking fun at the other, being there when they need them. It's actually really nice. It's really nice. We see more of Cap actually trying to keep everything intact. We see Cap trying to acclimate to the present day in his own way, burying himself in his work, trying to make the best he can, checking in on things he loves, trying to check up on the world, to try and catch up on what he missed. Even when he sees Peggy, it's obvious he's happy to see her, but there's just such a tragedy, because one of the best things, because I think it was one of the things that worked in Captain America: The First Avenger, was the relationship that he and Peggy were kind of slowly building up. It wasn't great, but it was still nice and was sweet and had sweet moments. And so and you can actually see the pain on his face. It's subtle, but you can actually see Cap trying to deal with the fact that this woman that he loved is now old and her brain is leaving her. Even when she recognizes him, it's only for fleeting moments, and it's so sad. And it makes it's just, everything about his life from before is gone. And then and then it kind of ties together with Bucky. When some remnant of his old life is now returned, something that he thought was lost long before he went into the ice, is now returned. It's an even more tragic angle because not only is he like not even the same person anymore, but he's working with the bad guys. So it's like this is his last chance at having something from his old life, a friend that he grew up with here, and it's actually pretty sad and really nice. And the relationship with Sam and the development of that, I think, is really nice. Like, it kind of goes once again to having the hero being introduced in someone else's film and having that be the setup. Like in the introduction of Black Widow and Iron Man 2. But in this case, I feel like that more is done with him as he plays an integral part in the story. And I feel like more is done with him here. Like, Black Widow and Iron Man 2 wasn't underplayed. Like, she still did her stuff. Like, she still participated in the big plan, but she wasn't really... But the story was mostly Tony's. She was there to kind of be She was there kind of to be the representative of S.H.I.E.L.D. and offer support to Tony. Here, Sam is actually a legitimate part of the story. Introduced organically, he comes into the plot, he ultimately helps out, he's the one that helps out Cap in the end, as now he and Cap are now on the hunt to find Bucky to try and get him back to the light side. It's actually it's nice, and I like how they introduced Falcon. I didn't really know that much about Falcon before this movie. I knew he was a member of the Avengers, so when he showed up, I recognized him. But just the way they introduced him is just so kick-ass. The way they wrote him before that, they showed him, like with Black Widow, they had developed him long before before you saw him in his superhero garb. So when he finally pulls it out, you know he's a reliable guy and he's probably very fit for the job. And it's really nice. I love it. And again, and the story is so well paced, if you ask me. Like, the tension rises little by little, and it all adds on to each other. Like Fury not being able to get into the files, him wanting to putting a hole in Project Insight, and then things get revved up as he's suddenly attacked by all these police officers and the Winter Soldier for realizing that something's dangerous is going on. To Cap getting the secret drive, when he quote unquote dies. To Cap suddenly being put in everyone's radar now that he's knows this stuff, to the reveal that Hydra has actually just been in S.H.I.E.L.D., and the reason that Cap and Nick are now on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s target reticle is because they're on the cusp of stopping Hydra's final big play to take over the world using Project Insight and these helicarriers. It is so great and big, and the tension just keeps building on itself. It is so fun, and it makes you and again with the revelation, it is such a big revelation that it kind of shakes the foundation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe up till this point. Because again, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been a constant thing throughout the movies, whether they be integral to the plot, there in the background doing stuff, or just kind of doing it, or just there. In some way, they've had a hand in stuff, and so to learn that this entire time they were in fact harboring the bad guys, whether they knew it or not, it suddenly kind of puts everything in the previous movies to a new light. Why the Senator was probably like the Senator in Iron Man 2. Like, at first you thought he was just a swarmy senator who thought that the U.S. government needed to have the iron technology, but now that you learn that he's Hydra, it turns out he was probably trying to steal that technology so that Hydra can manufacture their own Iron Man army, which again is a very scary, which actually would make a lot of sense. And on top of that, just seeing how deep this conspiracy goes, like even to the point where we have Zola from the first Captain America movie coming in. Turns out he's operating behind the scenes as well. Is just such a very, and I love how they represent Zola in this film. Like, I didn't know about Zola as a villain till much later. I didn't know that in the comics he was an AI that transferred from computer body to computer body. But, so, I think this is actually a pretty nice interpretation, and the reveal of him in there, I think, was just uber creepy, especially when he says, "You're standing in my brain," as they realize, wait, they're standing in a room with every computer making up his mind. And it's actually pretty scary, especially when he reveals the whole Hydra thing, especially, like, when they organize all these deaths, like with Howard Stark and so forth. That is actually legitimately terrifying, and I love it. I effing love it. It's great. And I guess another thing I talked about that I gushed over, the action. Oh my holy god, the action is so good! Everything is just so fast-paced and built on each other. You can see the blood, sweat, and tears. All the acrobatics and all all the acrobatics that have to go into every little move. The big, like, and every action scene is fun to watch. Whether it be a big action scene, like when Captain America takes down, like with the fights on the helicarriers, or when Captain America has to take down a ship, to the smaller battles in the street, like when to the smaller battles in the street, the smaller battles, like when they're on the ship with the pirates have commandeered and Cap's taking them out, or when it's just Cap, or when Cap, Widow, and Falcon are facing off against the Shield agents and the Winter Soldier. That stuff is so damn fun. It is so good. I think that's really great, and I think a lot of this film is just so, and I think a lot of this film, because of all this, is well put together. Like, you got some great actors, and the characters, I think, have some really good chemistry. Like, all the stuff, I feel like that's some of the character stuff that was missing from Captain America, the First Avenger. It's here in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Like, that scene with, like I mentioned before, the scene with Bucky and Cap when they're talking with each other, and Bucky offering to let Cap stay in his apartment, and Cap says, no, I want to make it out on my own, and Bucky tells him, just remember, no matter what, it's you and me till the end of the line. That, I think, would have been a powerful scene if something like that was in Captain America, the First Avenger. It probably would have made Bucky's eventual quote-unquote death in that film a lot more heavy than it was. Because again, in that film, well, you got enough of development for Bucky to kind of to understand that he and Cap are friends, and then feel like, and then kind of have an that sucks moment when he dies. It didn't hit you as hard as it hit Cap. Like, admittedly, he was just kind of Cap's friend. Here, though, we actually do get more development, and the reveal of him as the Winter Soldier, I think, is a great way for Cap and it's a great way to extend on his character, because this is not only a former soldier that was a friend of Cap's, he's been brainwashed for the last few decades by Hydra to be their perfect soldier. And he's probably done a lot of shady and killer and deadly things with no memory of who he was. And now to finally see his friend again, who stirs those memories in place, causing him to question his own identity, it could ultimately lead to you feeling sorry for him, because for the last few decades of his life was not his own. It actually would lead to some good legitimate drama, especially between him and Captain America. That, I think, is that is so good, and again, with the repeat of the line, it does make you feel for Cap and Bucky in their respective situations and the ultimate clash of this. It's really damn good in that regard. So, is there any flaws I can think of this film? I think one. There is one flaw that, even in the grand scheme of things, doesn't ruin it, but it is a very noticeable flaw. And that, namely, is the Winter Soldier. Despite the fact that his name is in the title of the movie, he's not the big bad. I think that's the only flaw I can think of with this movie, and it's kind of a minor one in comparison, but it's some very obvious flaw, but it's something very blatant if you're actually looking. Because despite the fact that this film is called Captain America, the Winter Soldier ain't the main focus. The Winter Soldier is a hired gun, at best. It's kind of like Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Despite the fact that he was billed up as the big bad of that movie, that the guy that Spider-Man had to take care of, and when you actually sit down and watch the movie, he's not the big bad. He's the hired muscle to the big bad at best. Like, he's obviously a very big force that needs to be stopped, but at the end of the day, he doesn't have as much. At the end of the day, he's really just working for the real bad guy who's having his own development going on. And it's kind of a similar case of the Winter Soldier. It is kind of made up for the fact when you get the drama when it's revealed that he's Bucky and Cap, and when he starts questioning his identity, when he realizes that he knows Cap, and when he realizes that he and Cap know each other. It does lead to legitimate drama there. It's just that when you market your film as Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and the Winter Soldier is at best a hired gun, is at best the dragon to the real bad guy, in this case Alexander Pierce, it's something you notice is all I'm saying. And again, I'm not saying that either character was awful. Like, again, the Winter Soldier was, even before the reveal, was shown to be a very deadly force that if you encountered, you'd be lucky to just get off with a gunshot wound. He was a legitimate lash to Captain America. He caught his shield. He could stand up to him in more than one occasion. His metal arm could actually shake Cap's shield. That was scary. So that alone is something that you can really have that can add some legitimate drama. And again, Alexander Pierce, Alexander Pierce actually, with how Robert, with, again, I gotta look, sorry. With how Robert Redford plays him, he's really well done. Like, he's really good. Like, he really plays him off like this guy who's kind of got everything handled and everything, like, he's got every angle covered. Like, he's he's seen everything. Like, he's a guy who's so confident that he won't lose, that even when he is losing, he doesn't break down. Like, there is a power to the performance. Like, if you actually stop and think about him as a villain, he really, like, I guess you could say he's like the subtle villain, but there is enough of power, but he is kind of smarmy, and it's obvious Robert Redford's having a lot of fun playing this character, so I like that. I do like that a lot. It's just that, again, when you advertise your film as Captain America the Winter Soldier, and the Winter Soldier is at best the hired muscle for the real big bad, I think that's just kind of some false advertising right there. But again, that's like a minor flaw at best. And again, the drama with Captain America and Bucky, I think really is good, and I think it helps add some nice character stuff for later. So I think on the whole, yeah, Captain America the Winter Soldier is just kick-ass. It is such a good movie, and I think it's one of the best films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. It's got great action, great character interaction and character moments, a great story with great pacing, great big revelations, nice reveals, some great effects, and I guess the only minor, and it perfectly sets up future plot points to be explored in later films. And I guess the only flaw about it is it's called the Winter Soldier, despite that the titular Winter Soldier is not even the big bad. He's just one of the hired helpers. But at the end of the day, again, that's a minor flaw. The rest of the film more than makes up for it. It is still a kick-ass movie, and I cannot recommend it enough if you have not seen it yet. Though if you're watching this vlog, you probably already have. So, yeah. I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and tune in next week as we once again go to explore the cosmos as we're introduced to a new team of heroes with the Guardians of the Galaxy.